your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along. Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte sitting in as he always does as well. Going to be joined today by Andy Katz from the March Madness 365 podcast, Fox and BTN. He put out his top 10 player of the year candidates a day or two ago. We'll talk to him about that. Trayce Jackson-Davis was one of those, but also a few other Big Ten centers at the top of that list, talking about how brutal it's going to be. Lots going on, man. Welcome in.
Hey, how's it going, Jim? It's it's always fun to do back-to-back shows. I got to make sure my vocal cords are ready to go for the hour today.
Look at you, man. You're getting ready.
I know.
Yeah, plenty to get to, talk about. I saw Wisconsin. Of course, we know about their quarterback with his issues. He underwent surgery. No idea. I have no idea what it was. I mean, this could be something where he's back in 4 weeks. I don't know what it is exactly. And Indiana doesn't play Wisconsin until the second to last game of the season, which I think is December 5th. So odds are, unless this is serious, this dude's going to be back for Wisconsin when Indiana faces him, I would imagine.
Well, maybe not, because their backup quarterback, Graham Mertz, is pretty darn good, too. And a lot of Wisconsin fans would have liked to seen him get the job last season. You know, 4-star kid. He dominated the I can't remember whether it was the All-American Bowl or the Army Bowl at the high school level a few years ago. But you know, if he plays well in those early games, he could be the starter. You know, he could pull a Wally Pipp, right? So
I was just getting ready to say they got Wally pipped, man. I almost said it a second ago. You took that out. Power got it. I'm glad you know that though.
I've heard it a few or in the stories quite a bit, so I can't take credit for knowing it off the top of my head, but you know, when you read enough or you listen to radio enough, you get it. But yeah, he's a good player. He's going to add a new dynamic to Wisconsin's offense. Obviously, they're not going to change much in terms of offensive mentality. Still going to run the ball quite a bit. Still going to focus on those running backs, but strong offensive line play. But he can stretch the field for him, I think, better than Jack Cohn can. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the Badgers do if Jack Cohn is healthy at some point in the season, whether they go back to him or if Graham Mertz plays well enough, he may be the starter for the next couple of years.
Now you have to explain who Wally Pipp is to half the audience. I'm sure half know. I don't know. Half know. Half might know, but I guarantee you half does not know.
Well, I'm not. This is going to be a very generic.
You don't know. You don't know this. I can tell the story. You don't know this.
He's a baseball guy who jumped in front of. I can't remember who the player was off the top of my head. He was the
starting first baseman for the New York Yankees. And wanted to take a day off. He took a day off. Coach put in a guy named Lou Gehrig.
Aha. See,
Lou
I thought it was the
Gehrig
other way
would go on to set the baseball record of consecutive games played. Wally Pipp never played another game at first base for the New York Yankees. That is what getting Wally Pipped is. And that's what makes it great.
See, I got it reversed. I always thought Wally Pipp was the guy that came in for somebody else.
No, he got replaced by Lou Gehrig, who would play the most consecutive games in sports history. Well, until that was broke by Cal Ripken Jr., but the Iron Man Award. But yeah, Wally Pipp. He got Wally Pipped. Yeah, he never played another game for the Yankees, at least. It was it. Took a day off, and that was it. It was over. Funny.
See, now I'll use it. Now I'll use it properly from here on out since I got that history lesson.
That's always cool to learn. Hey, I saw that the great Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan racing team is going to build a new headquarters in Zionsville up outside of Indianapolis. That's kind of cool. Brings in like 75 jobs, but to have a racing team, that's the thing. Indianapolis, known as the racing headquarters of the world, but how many racing teams are here? Like if you look at NASCAR in Charlotte, they're virtually all there. Not all 100%, but I'd say 90% of the teams are there in Charlotte. That's not the case with IndyCar racing in Indianapolis.
Is there a reason for that? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I think it's because a lot of these teams are already established, and IndyCar and that formula type of racing is not as central NASCAR.
Sure.
Charlotte.
I mean, that makes sense. And I didn't know if there were, owners want to be closer to where the team is, or if there's, could depend on the cost too of the facility, or, if there's any cities making pitches to get some of these teams, I don't know. But that's an interesting thing. You would think with Indianapolis being such a primary location for whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, or any sort of thing. I mean, people in Indiana love any kind of racing. You would think there would be more, not just maybe in Indianapolis, but throughout the state. But that's going to be pretty cool for Zionsville. I know, my father lives there, and I know that place has really exploded over the last 5-10 years. So really cool for those guys.
We've in the third segment today, we'll talk about the crystal ball that you guys put out at Saturday Tradition. Go through the entire season game by game. I asked Dustin, he didn't do this, but I said, well, what was their final record that they predicted? Just out of curiosity, 4-4. Before we start that, so you'll know. But I'm like, wow, they didn't go out on much of a limb there. But we'll go through the games because I disagree with them already. Look forward to talking about that. Yesterday, it came out that the Maui/Asheville Invitational. Get it? The Maui Invitational. Be playing in Asheville. That Indiana opens against Providence, the Friars. I think they went 12-6 in their league last year, but Indiana should be the second favorite team in that tournament, behind North Carolina, I would think. But North Carolina's lucky. They don't have to go anywhere. To Asheville, go over to the I was talking about this yesterday. I keep forgetting about the name. The Hermit. No, not the Hermit. It's daggone it.
The Biltmore.
Vanderbilt place. The Biltmore. I've never been there. I wish they played at the Biltmore. But
I know that would be cool. But I tell you what, though, I mean, Indiana's going to have a challenge that first game. I don't know what I'm not going to try to claim I'm a Providence expert or a college basketball expert here, but Ed Cooley does a really good job every year for them. He was up for potentially getting the Michigan job before Juwan Howard got it. So they'll have their hands full, especially early in the season. Teams are going to be psyched up, ready to go after not being on the court and having the NCAA tournament canceled. So that'll be a fun matchup. But I think we talked about this yesterday. North Carolina is going to be the favorite because of the name on the front of their jersey, but they weren't very good last year. So I think Indiana has as good a chance to win it as any of the names in that tournament right now.
Absolutely, and that would be something that Archie Miller could certainly use. A booster, but also along the lines of that, the Gavitt games, of which Indiana usually, it's the Big Ten and the Big East. That is not going to happen this year. They're going to punt until the following season, which I guess not a big surprise. They've already taken precautions to have all these other ones played in a bubble, but maybe it's just too much because this is just one bit of travel too many.
Right.
You got to remember there's a lot of travel involved with all this stuff if it's not bubbleized.
Yeah, and you're starting to see now a lot of teams, if you follow John Rothstein at CBS Sports, he puts out a bunch of these reports with, I think Nebraska and Illinois are both hosting multi-team events, and whether that's going to be 4 teams or 8 teams or whatever it looks like. So you're probably going to see more of the centralized multi-team events, kind of like what you see in Indianapolis every year with the Crossroad Classic. I would assume you're going to see, maybe Illinois, Northwestern, Illinois State and Western Illinois, or something to that extent, where you're going to have to limit the travel, but you still get these non-conference matchups for some of these schools. So it should be interesting to see how these teams schedule in lieu of missing some of these traditional tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, see there. You mentioned a couple of the other bubble places. I'm surprised that IU/Indianapolis did not do this, did not create an event. Indianapolis is the unfettered king of events, hosting events, putting them on, all of that. Shocked that they did not, because to my knowledge, nothing is going on that I'm aware of. Now, is that because they're going to bubbleize the NCAA tournament at the end of the year and it's going to change? Who knows that? I doubt all that. But I'm a little surprised because we've seen a lot of other places, Iowa, for example, Louisville, that are trying to put bubbles together to have events. I'm just surprised that the place that does it the best of all is not doing that.
Well, my only thought would be, I don't know that they would do it in the RCA Dome. Gosh, I'm going back 10 years. Lucas Oil Stadium. That's true. About, 15, 20 years now. But there could be some issues with scheduling with the NBA and the Pacers, maybe. You would think that the NBA would be able to work around that, but maybe that's just an obstacle they don't want to deal with. I don't really know how that kind of stuff works, but that could be one of the hiccups where, maybe Indianapolis and Bankers Life Fieldhouse, they just don't want to deal with it. Typically, I think the Maui Invitational wasn't that it was going to be between Asheville and Indianapolis, I thought. And then they obviously selected Asheville, and they're not playing at the Biltmore. So, but it's still early, and a lot of places are still adding events. So maybe Indianapolis or maybe Indiana or Purdue or Butler hosts something in the next, makes an announcement in the next couple of weeks. Who knows?
I think we should start a movement to move the Maui Invitational to the Biltmore.
Oh, I'll sign that pledge. What do we go to, like change.org or petition.com or something like that to, send out those mass.
I've never done it. I have to create our own, but just why not? If you're gonna go to Asheville, why not go to the Biltmore? Let's just kill two birds with one stone.
And some of those old,
a lot of rooms in that place.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if you've been to a lot of these old type of mansions or houses or things, but when you go into enough of them, a lot of these had like ballrooms or dancing rooms or roller rink rooms. So you got the hardwood in there. All you gotta do is put up 2 10-foot hoops and paint the floor. It's possible. Or you could tote in, like they did at the Orlando Bubble, they toted in some of those practice floors for the NBA teams. You could get that in there.
Did you just say toted in?
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
You've been down it. I know. For me, nothing. I'm quite accustomed to it, but I'm sure that a lot of people say, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there going, did he just say toted in? You've been, your girlfriend's got that Georgia effect on you too much, I think. But that's not strange to me at all. Trust me, but it's just so funny because I don't hear it very often anymore. That's something I probably would have said at one point.
Hey,
man, we got a lot. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the other day when I got done at the grocery store, I said buggy instead of cart. So I'm starting to become a true Southerner.
Whoa, stop, back up.
Yeah, I know.
Buggy?
Buggy.
Nobody calls it a buggy.
They do here in Georgia.
Well, you know what? I was getting ready to say nobody because that's so backwards. Well, okay, now you just I understand. I understand everything now. You just clarified that real quick. Buggy, man. Does electricity come on when you flip the switch and you got to like crank anything? When you pick up the phone, do you call Sarah? Hey, Sarah, can you get me the diner?
Yeah, the operator. Yep. I got a light. We do have a lot of candles in here in case power goes out at any time.
Like the Andy Griffith show. Hey, we got a lot coming up, man, but none bigger than Andy Katz from March Madness 365 podcast, BTN Fox. He's got his list of potential players of the year out. He's going to join us next. We're going to talk about it right here on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Hey, this is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you'll find complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers, as well as coverage of the Big Ten. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
No matter where you are in life, here's a question to consider. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you navigate where you want to go? An Ameriprise advisor will take the time to truly understand what's important to you and help you prepare for whatever life brings, both the expected and the unexpected, by providing personalized advice based on your goals and needs, and regular reviews along with digital tools to help you stay on track. With an Ameriprise advisor, you can feel more confident, connected, and in control of your financial life. Call Dennis Schneider, Heath Schneider, or Nick Davis with Schneider & Associates, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services. Call 877-827-1404. That's 877-827-1404. See Dennis Schneider at 236 North Elm Street in Henderson and Heath Schneider or Nick Davis at 20 East Campground Road in Evansville. Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. Member FINRA and SIPC.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. BTN, Fox, he's everywhere, but Andy's with us now. Andy, how are you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing fine. Following everything you got. We're closer to basketball, and I saw you put out your top 10 list of potential players of the year the other day, a great list. And the one thing that stands out is just continuing to emphasize how incredibly tough the Big Ten is going to be this year because, man, oh, man, 3-year time coming from that league.
Yeah, Garza, I think will be the preseason National Player of the Year, which obviously means Big Ten Player of the Year. I'd assume I think we'll be right there behind him. So you got 1, 2. And then other Big Ten, I chose Trace Jackson Davis from Indiana. I thought he was underappreciated last season. And even though it was a traditional offseason, where you could say the freshman to sophomore year is probably one of the biggest jumps that college athletes have. I still think that we'll see a jump from him. There'll be even more of a point of emphasis for Indiana. And, with that, because of that, I think we'll see an All-American type season.
I mean, it is just incredible the talent that is in one league this year, but especially with everybody that came back, Luka Garza, of course, everybody's player of the year, but it's such a strong league at the center position. Of course, Minnesota lost their big guy, but it's still the amount of talent in one season. It's kind of unusual to have this much.
Yeah, I mean, last year, had there been a tournament, I'm pretty convinced we would have had a minimum of 10, possibly 11. And I think this year, I feel pretty strongly that 11 teams will be in contention for bids. I think that what's going to help the Big Ten even more to try to get more teams is that, their 20 league games will probably be the best power rating games that any other league has. And with a number of other leagues struggling to get quality non-conference games because of the pandemic and the scheduling structure, I think there'll be even more emphasis on, the Big Ten games, which I think will raise the strength. Even though they'll beat each other up, it'll raise the strength of the league.
Hey, the other day I was talking the Big Ten, as strong as it has been, but the one thing that it has lacked is it hasn't won a national championship since 2000 with Michigan State. And it's just people keep looking at that. But the league is so strong. Why do you think that it takes a lot of luck to win a national championship? Is it just that simple? They just haven't had the luck. Otherwise, why can the Big Ten not just get that crown jewel anymore?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Michigan played for the title twice. So and Michigan State did in 2009, ran into a, crazy good Carolina team that year. Wisconsin had a lead on Duke with, I think, less than 5 minutes left in 2015. So there have been opportunities. It's not like they haven't had them. Ohio State obviously, ran into that Florida team in 2007, I think that was, or 2006. The chances have been there. They just haven't been able to close it. To me, I don't judge that as a negative. To me, it's more about their overall strength. I don't have this off the top of my head, but I got to believe if we were to look at number of total bids since 2000, it has to be the Big Ten of the ACC, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Big Ten holds that number over the ACC or is right there with them in terms of total number of bids. So that to me shows the overall strength of the league.
I agree. We've got a lot of tournaments now, preseason or pre-conference tournaments that are going to be happening. We saw that the Maui Invitational is moving to Asheville, of course, and yesterday announced Indiana's going to open with Providence. You got North Carolina League, some good tournaments that are going to be going on. Great early season tests for basketball programs.
Yeah, I mean, we're still seeing how they're out. Maui is going to happen in Asheville, as you said, which I think is going to be a really good tournament with I think Providence, I have them as in the top 4 in the Big East, so that'll be a great test for Indiana. Texas is going to be a top 20 team. North Carolina is going to be a top 25 team. Stanford and Alabama, I think, are going to be top 25, top 30 teams. So Indiana is going to come out of that with at least a couple, if they can get 2 wins out of that, that's going to be great for their resume. But we'll have to wait and see how all the rest of the schedules play out in terms of, how these tournaments are put together and how many teams actually in the Big Ten will actually go play tournaments versus just having some games at home outside of the challenge and maybe like the Champions Classic.
And I mentioned earlier how difficult the Big Ten is going to be this year. Archie Lerner going into his 4th season. Hoosier Nation, of course, they want to see that continued progress. And with a potential player of the year in Trace Jackson Davis, I know that they're counting on that. But, man, is it just bad timing that this is the year that they really need to show that progress forward? But, boy, oh, boy, he has to do it in a year where the Big Ten is as strong as it has been in a long, long time.
Well, that's why I think, how you judge them should be obviously their overall improvement, winning enough of the good games, but I wouldn't expect them to, could they finish in the top 3? Sure they could, but I wouldn't say that that's the barometer. If they have a solid season in this Big Ten, get to the tournament, win a couple games, to me that's, if they got to the Sweet 16, which is all plausible, or even, round of 32, although at that point, a lot of times it's matchups and, how fortunate you are. To me, that would be a solid season. And to get as much as they can out of Trace Jackson Davis, they got a veteran backcourt with Durham and Finney, another veteran big guy, and Joey Brunk. The thing that's going to be interesting is, how it plays out. Like, we can't really judge how a team performs on the road this season because the majority, if not all, at least in the first half of the year, I'm going to project, won't have fans. Or maybe, we could have a situation where, and we'll see what happens. I know in the state of Indiana, you guys are, going ahead a little bit further than other states. So, you could see where maybe there's modified fans at Indiana and Purdue and Nebraska and maybe Iowa, maybe no fans in the state of Michigan, no fans in the state of Illinois or in Rutgers or Maryland. And so, road games are going to have to be judged differently because winning in certain places may be more difficult if they have fan support, and others it might be like a glorified scrimmage in terms of its atmosphere, not on the court, but the atmosphere.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot, Andy, in regards to football, because you look at programs like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, who all have over 100,000 each week at every game. That's a gigantic advantage. That's going to be wiped out now. I wonder how many the fortunes of how many teams are going to be changed on the basketball court this year because of that as well, where they're able to do things that they may not have been able to do had they been full of fans.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I could be wrong, but I thought with Indiana, just because and maybe I'm getting bad info, but because I have a friend whose daughter goes there, and if I'm not mistaken, their students are not going to come back till, if not late January, maybe even early February, that they're really taking an extended off-campus. I think they're going to start I thought it was the first couple weeks virtually, if I remember they announcing that early in the fall. So even if they were allowing fans to some extent in Bloomington, there may not be students until February that would be allowed or would even be on campus. So, not that the locals can't create a raucous atmosphere, but it certainly might be different if there are no students in the building for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to it. Besides, you got the 365 podcast. Is you have a new edition of that out?
Yeah, every Tuesday morning it's posted. This week I've got Chris Beard from Texas Tech. Went over, as you mentioned, our Player of the Year candidates, and obviously a number of other things just related to the season, breaking everything down in terms of our teams to, our national title contenders, and just having fun with a bracket, here in the preseason. And then practice starts, next Wednesday. So we'll start amping things up for BTN as well, and checking in with schools around the conference and around the country.
We're very fortunate for you to come on with us. We're great. Mike DeCourcy comes on with us each Tuesday, so we're grateful for everybody from BTN. But, man, you guys are about to crank up. How much more difficult is it going to be for you to do your job this year? Because I know that all of us, we're doing so many things virtually. There's been a lot of things where it's made it somewhat easier, but then there's a lot of portions where it's not easier. And with someone like you who has to cover such a massive amount of information, where I focus more on the Big Ten and Indiana, you cover everything nationally, and the guys that cover everything, my gosh, I can only imagine how much more difficult this has made your job.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want to get out there, but I don't know, how much I'll be able to. We'll have to just wait and see.
Absolutely. Andy Katz from the Much Madness 365 podcast, Big Ten Network, Fox. I can't thank you enough as always, man.
Well, thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Andy Katz. Have a great day. Joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Dustin, he's become kind of one of the Big Ten go-to guys here of late. He was formerly with ESPN, but then when he changed jobs, he's with the NCAA and does a lot of stuff on the March Madness side and with BTN and Fox, and fortunate to have him on. But, man, he is really kind of integrated into the Big Ten country.
Yeah, he does a great job covering it, and I know you'll see him on Big Ten Network on more than a few occasions, and I think he does tournament coverage as well. He's one of the analysts on that panel, so he just does a great job. And we look at some of these things like, man, how do we keep track of the big and make sure we cover 14 teams? This is a guy who's covering 300 some basketball teams on a yearly basis and does a fantastic job doing it. So that's a guy that I don't know. It's interesting that you asked whether his job is going to be here and now. Obviously, it takes away some of that personal. He doesn't get to see in gyms or talk with coaches face to face, but does it make it easier that he can speak with coaches in a virtual setting across the country now? So I'm sure his job has changed quite a bit, but he still does a fantastic job. I don't know how he would keep track of all these teams in the NCAA. He just does a marvelous job.
It's certainly a lot. Hey, in the next segment, we're going to go over the crystal ball on some football games. But before we get to that, how about, man, the Pacers and Victor Oladipo and the coach? The saga continues. I'm surprised that it's Of course, there's no reason. I guess there's no reason to be in a hurry, but I don't even know when the NBA season is going to restart. I know we haven't finished it yet. We have one game to go. Is that tonight? They play tonight.
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. I think the Lakers can close it out tonight.
And they're wearing the Mamba jerseys tonight. I saw that. So game 5, they're up 3-1. I don't think LeBron James wants to screw around anymore. He's done. He's like, I guarantee you he wants to win this game. I mean, they want to be done with it. And then I don't even know when their NBA is going to come back, when it restarts. I haven't dug into it that much. I don't care, I guess, enough to do it. But yeah, the Pacers, they're without a coach. You got Victor Oladipo that doesn't seem to be terribly happy, but they've got to make some moves. When are they going to do it?
Yeah, it's interesting because you thought that Victor Oladipo was a guy that might stick around, maybe not his entire career because you just don't see that very often, but you thought he might spend a good portion of his career. You know, he was okay in Orlando. He did some good things with Oklahoma City, and then he comes to Indiana and he just thrives. And obviously the fans love him because of his IU ties, and he has some extreme success here. But it sounds like he wants to win a championship, and probably not going to happen in the near future for the Pacers, especially with the coaching change. But yeah, like I said recently, I was keeping a track on it, checking the Pacers tracker every day and checking the apps on my phone and ESPN every day because I thought that they would try to make a quick hire, but appears that's not going to be the case. So, just whenever the news comes out, it comes out. But I don't even know who the candidates are at this point. I know Mike D'Antoni was projected as one candidate, but outside of that,
process of elimination. The guys get hired at other places. Like, well, who's left?
Right. And that could be very well what it is. I don't know if they're looking, on the staff for a replacement, or if they're, maybe just considering all options, maybe waiting till this season comes to an end to see who might have interest. It's going to be interesting to see who they hire. But again, it was just shocking considering the timing of it after offering Nate McMillan the 1-year extension and then basically scrapping that. So it'll be interesting, but Pacers are going to look a lot different next year than they did the past few years.
I think they should hire Norman Dale's tired old bones.
There you go. He ain't messing around. He'll play with 4 guys.
I guarantee it. His team's on the floor, baby. So's mine. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We're back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Hey, this is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you'll find complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers, as well as coverage of the Big Ten. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
No matter where you are in life, here's a question to consider. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you navigate where you want to go? An Ameriprise advisor will take the time to truly understand what's important to you and help you prepare for whatever life brings, both the expected and the unexpected, by providing personalized advice based on your goals and needs, and regular reviews along with digital tools to help you stay on track. With an Ameriprise advisor, you can feel more confident, connected, and in control of your financial life. Call Dennis Schneider, Heath Schneider, or Nick Davis with Schneider & Associates, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services. Call 877-827-1404. That's 877-827-1404. See Dennis Schneider at 236 North Elm Street in Henderson and Heath Schneider or Nick Davis at 20 East Campground Road in Evansville. Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. Member FINRA and SIPC.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. Justin Schutte from Saturday again, as he usually does. And we've got the crystal ball for the season. We're, 2 weeks away from Big Ten football. Indiana opening up with Penn State. And we've got to predict in week by week, Dustin.
Yeah, and it's kind of a fun look and a little description as to why. Like I said, I didn't write it, but one of our guys, Ryan O'Gara, does all of our crystal ball selections, and so he goes week by week, gives an explanation.
He's already making excuses. I didn't write it.
Hey, I've been high on the Hoosiers, so I think they'll get. I disagree with some of these in here, but that's what we talk about. That's why we have conversations about it.
Yep. Well, let's get to it. The very first one, of course, in 2 weeks, Indiana opens up with Penn State at home. I'm reading straight from their deal right now. Indiana nearly pulled off the upset in 2019, but I don't think the Hoosiers will be able to stop Penn State's offense. Indiana allowed 31 or more points in 6 games last season, and the Nittany Lions have a balanced and explosive attack waiting for the Hoosiers in week 1. It's not that I disagree with it. That's going to take an upset. Indiana should have won the game last year,
right?
But they didn't. So shoulda, coulda, woulda. But week 1, I don't know that Indiana can be ready week 1 for a monumental task like that. To be honest with you, I'd like to see it. I know they have the talent to do it, but I don't know that they get it done either. Let's hope. But yeah, I'm gonna put that in the loss category. But.
Well, let me throw this out here to you, because Penn State, I think that when you look at the experience, I think that they're probably even from the experience standpoint. Penn State has more talent. I don't think that's debatable, but they did lose, one of the best linebacker in college football in Micah Parsons. They don't have a great wide receiving core. Really, they have Jahan Dotson and Pat Fryer.
They just lost somebody else as wide receiver, didn't they?
Yep, they did. They a 4-star
freshman.
John Dunmar is out, so there's another. That position group took another blow, and Indiana's secondary should be better. But you look at it, Penn State over the past couple of years, early in the season, they've had games where they should have won convincingly, and they had to squeak it out. That happened last year against Pitt. It happened a few years ago against Appalachian State. It happened 4 years ago against Pitt. They actually lost that game. So they've had struggles early in the season. When you look at the schedule and say that should be a convincing win, they've had trouble with those games. So I think that Indiana, I think that's going to be one of the marquee games in week 1, just because it is week 1. Indiana has a ton of experience back. They have a returning quarterback. I think that game's going to be a shootout, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be in the high 30s. So Indiana's going to have a shot at that game. I don't know that they'll get the upset, but I would almost consider that game slightly in Penn State's favor, maybe like a 55-60 to 40 percentage, if that's how we were going with that.
I don't disagree with you on that. I think that you have to give Penn State the nod. But it's Indiana. They showed it last year, and they're going to be at home, which won't matter much at all, to be honest with you. But let's hope they can get if they can get that win. Oh my God, what could that do? But I'm putting it down as a loss, unfortunately, right now. We'll move on to week 2. I'm not even going to waste any time with week 2. It's against Rutgers. That's a win. We move on to week 3. Week 3 is the most interesting game of the season to me. I'm going to throw this onus out there. I think Indiana has to beat Michigan this year. It's been too many years where they've been close. There's been too many years where Indiana is close to beating a team, a marquee team. They haven't done it, and it's just too damn long. I don't care what team in what conference, they rise up and they win this game every 8-10 years. That's not happening here, and it's time. It's got to happen. Now, of course, we're talking about the Big Ten East and a juggernaut. So it is not like this is easy. So I get that. But it is time. Michigan goes down. That's a win. I give them a win over Michigan.
I agree with you there. And another interesting thing here is we talked about Penn State early in the season, but this Michigan team, you're catching them week 3. And they have a brand new offensive line. Essentially, they have a brand new quarterback. They're 3 of their top receivers from last season are gone. The only advantage they're going to have is in the running back room because they've got a boatload with Zach Charbonnet, Hassan Haskins, Chris Evans, Christian Turner. Defensively is going to be the interesting thing because that's kind of been where Indiana has lost this game. They haven't been able to get the necessary stops, even against a slower Michigan offense. So Indiana's defense is going to have to come to play. But I think if you compare the two offenses, Indiana absolutely has the advantage. It's going to come down to defense in that game. And Michigan with Don Brown is always going to be a stout defensive team, but I like Indiana in this matchup, especially early in the season. You have a new quarterback, you have new wide receivers, and in a pretty fresh offensive line. They didn't get that spring practice to gel, and a lot of gaps in there between when they played last Alabama in the Citrus Bowl and right now when they're practicing. So I think Indiana gets the experience in that one. And that's why I think the Hoosiers have a great shot to get that win.
I agree. Michigan's problems, they haven't had a great quarterback the entire time that Harbaugh's been there. And let me tell you, I don't care who you are. If you don't have a good quarterback, you got nothing. So we'll see how that works out. But so I've got them 2-1 to start the season. I've got them beating Michigan. It's time. Then you follow that with a game at Michigan State, which another game they should have won last year. They better win that this. You lose this game to me, that's like losing at Maryland to me this year. That is no different than losing to Maryland this year. That is a must-win game there now. So I put that down as a win. You have to win that game. You have to show last year wasn't a fluke, that you should have beat them, and that you are coming on and you are moving up because they finished ahead of them in the Big East standings last year. They've got to continue moving forward to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you look back at it, if Indiana wins that game, Michigan State doesn't go to a bowl. So, that's they could have spoiled Michigan State's season. And Mel Tucker, new head coach, again, new quarterback. They lost their 2 top receivers from last season. They don't have a lot of offensive talent. They are moving some pieces defensively. They had one of their top offensive linemen opt out for the 2020 season. So this is really a game. I think you're right. I think Michigan State is still a notch above teams like Rutgers and Maryland, but not much. They just have too much changing this offseason. This should be I don't want to say easy win because there's no easy wins in the Big Ten really, but this should be a game that you chalk up as a W for the Hoosiers.
I agree. And see, what would that make them at? Where were we? So that
3-1.
3-1 there. That if they could do that, that's monumental. That's uncharted territory just because of the teams that have been played. Because that record is that without those non-conference games that are normally played. So then comes week 5, Ohio State. Indiana has no chance to win this game, and you rarely hear me say that about anything. But I'm just being honest. It's not just Indiana. I could go through the entire Big Ten, and 80% of the teams I would say this about in this game. Ohio State is it comes down to talent, and they have talent in spades over teams, especially middle of the pack like Indiana, Maryland. Crossover, Nebraska, not even Nebraska necessarily, but even with those middle pack teams, they've got twice the talent, and they're just there's no chance for a win there. 0. I don't know if there's anything that could happen that Indiana, not just Indiana or Maryland, could beat this type of team, an Ohio State team. Just don't see it possible.
I don't think so either, because they have their offensive line has played in over 100 games. They've got a Heisman Trophy quarterback in Justin Fields. They have arguably one of the best receiving corps in the Big Ten. The goal for Indiana here, I know that this is not what Tom Allen preaches. Obviously, no coach preaches this, but the goal here is to just keep it close. Try not to get blown out 51-10 like you did last year. And I think that you can count that as a victory. Maybe not in the locker room, but if Indiana can keep it with it, this is going to sound dumb, but if you can keep that game within 3 touchdowns, because Ohio State beat everybody last year by double figures aside from Clemson. So you just have to keep it close and look like you're taking that next step and that you can compete with some of the top teams in the Big Ten. But yeah, that's chalked up to a loss too. So that would put IU at 3-2 then.
But if they could be 3-2 after the first 5 games of the Big Ten season,
yeah,
party time, baby. Get the parade started. Let's get it going. Get the permits out, because that would be a great success. Then they would move on to take on Maryland. It's a game that it's just one of those games where you're supposed to win, so you have to win that game. That would put them at 4-2. If Indiana's at 4-2, the confidence alone should be building on that team, and that is why the next game is at Wisconsin. Unlike Ohio State, where I said that they have 0 chance to win that game, I think that Indiana has a chance to win at Wisconsin because of the crowd situation and because of the quarterback. We don't know what's going on there. They've lost some other stuff. Indiana's good. It'll be how many? What 6 games into the season at that point, or however many? 5. Indiana would have things rolling by then. That would give Nick Sheridan more time to hone what he's doing. This is a game that I don't see as a win, but I do not see as an impossibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree, because that's kind of how I view the Penn State game. I think that these 2 games are very similar in that. But to me, the negative aspect of this whole rescheduling to me is that Indiana doesn't play Wisconsin in the first week of the season, because I thought, and especially now when you have the quarterback, excuse me, when you have the quarterback issues, and you have a kid who has never started before now taking on the starting role, Indiana could have really taken advantage of this. Now you're talking about this kid is going to have 6 weeks, whether it's Jack Cohn or Graham Mertz, potentially have 6 weeks. Wisconsin tends to get better as the season goes along. They'll have more established running backs. The offensive line will have time to gel. Obviously, the defense is always good at Wisconsin. I would have really liked this upset as a week 1 upset. Now that it's at week 7, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Wisconsin this year. I would say I give Indiana less of a chance to win this game now that it's in week 7. But like you said, Indiana should be somewhat comparable to Wisconsin, so it's not impossible to go on the road, get a big win in this game, and potentially just have 2 losses going in the final week of the season.
Yeah, that would put them at 4-3, and that would be a success there, because if you're already at 4-3 with 2 games yet to go, one of those being Purdue, and I think that's at home. So a game that's going to be a little more interesting now, because you've got Rondale Moore back in the fold, and that changes things entirely for the Purdue Boilermakers and Jeff Brom.
Yeah, and this game has been kind of a coin flip. These 2 teams have played so close under the Jeff Brom, Tom Allen era. So this is going to be really fun, I think, to watch. And to me, it's a coin flip because it's a rivalry game. Even though Purdue wasn't very good last year, Jeff Brom finds a way to motivate his players, and they were competitive in just about every game when they really shouldn't have been. I mean, that was a team that could have been 2-10 last season, and they still were able to find out ways to beat Northwestern and Nebraska. So this is going to be a coin flip. I think Indiana has the edge in this one, but anything's possible in a rivalry game.
I put a win down for that one. That's week 8, and that would make them 5-3 at that point, which would be a monster season, because that's an 8-win season already if you're at that point. But then you've got one more game left in the regular season with a crossover game, which is, I love this. This is the best thing that they've done. It is, and you got to give Jim Harbaugh the credit. Didn't he come up with this? The crossover game, they end the season, the 9th game. you will play who you are facing across the division, whether if it's Wisconsin is first in the West and it's Ohio State. The only thing that's not, I guess maybe it would change the standings. It could, it may not. But we could have a Wisconsin-Ohio State game in back-to-back weekends, because if they play a crossover game and then turn right around and play the Big Ten championship, we'd have that, which I guess there's worse things. But it could change the standings somewhat, depending on how big a lead whoever's up to that top spot. That could determine the Big Ten champion. So it's like having a mini playoff of sorts for those two teams, because if they're within a game of each other, it's a play-in game on that last game.
Right. And the one interesting thing that Barry Alvarez said is that he's going to try, the scheduling committee, they're going to try to avoid any rematches. So if Purdue and Indiana both finish third in their respective divisions, they're probably not going to play again. And what's going to be interesting to me is, and I think both fan bases would really like this, is if we see Indiana against a team like Nebraska again this season. Boy, how much fun would that be, considering at home. There you go. Considering all the fireworks that happened last year, the way Indiana won that game on the road, Tom Allen and Fred Glass kind of talking about how they felt disrespected by Nebraska. That would be really fun. The Cornhuskers would want revenge after everything that was said, and Indiana still play with that chip on their shoulder. It doesn't matter that they beat Nebraska. They still probably feel like that Nebraska doesn't respect them. So that would be really interesting. But considering what the Big Ten West might look like, they could play anybody from Iowa to Minnesota to Northwestern to Illinois. It's a complete toss-up.
Yeah, and then there's the possibility of Northwestern and Peyton Ramsey. So all kinds of different little storylines in that crossover game, which I'm telling you, I love this. I love the crossover game. But before I forget, Indiana wins the crossover game, because I don't care who it is, it's the West. And the West is just weaker. So to me, you better win that game. And that would be 6-3. That's a 9-win regular season. That would be big time.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. And like you said, I think that Indiana is going to end up playing probably a Northwestern, Illinois. Maybe they get an Iowa, but I don't think that the Big Ten West, outside of Wisconsin and Minnesota, it's more comparable, I guess you could say, but it's not as strong. So it's going to be interesting, but Indiana should get a favorable matchup in that. There's a lot of fun possibilities with Nebraska. As you mentioned, Northwestern, it would be so fun to see Peyton Ramsey, and those two teams in the final week of the season. And by the way, we don't know what's happening with bowl season. We may only get the New Year's Six. We may only get the college football playoff. This could serve as Indiana's bowl game. So there's a little added motivation there too. And let's just play devil's advocate here. Let's say the Hoosiers are 4-4. Entering that final game of the season, how much of a difference it makes to be 5-4 heading into the 2021 season as opposed to 4-5, not just for the mental state of your program, but for recruiting and all those sort of things as well. So there's going to be a lot riding on that final game of the season, and it should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. A couple texts in for I don't want to miss those before we close out, from Ryan up at Whitmore Lake, Michigan. Can you tell? I missed this. He wanted to tell Andy that Mark Titus that he talked to the other day was hilarious. He did ask, what is Dustin's way too early Final Four on the men's Division I basketball side? I'm going to give Dustin a pass on that one. We're going to wait till we get in to the start of the season before I put that on him. So we'll get back to that and see. And my Final Four, yeah, we're too early for that, Ryan, but we'll do that. Don't worry. Tim also says there's no one scheduled for the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Could Indiana get Louisville for that game? You know what? I think that's a distinct possibility because of geography, because of where we are right now. That's a great question. Does the Big Ten ACC Challenge go to geographic matchups at all possible? Because a Louisville-Indiana matchup, that would make sense. You got a rivalry kind of built in. You got two teams that are pretty close in talent, so that would work. Good question, but that's the one. That's one of the few tournaments that hasn't been determined yet, I guess. Does that end up in Indianapolis?
Yeah, it could. And what I read, I think maybe a week or two ago, was that they were still planning to have those games on campus. Now, it didn't specify whether that's one campus, singular, or if it was plural. I assume they mean playing on multiple campuses, but that's something that could be interesting. And you look at the ACC, you have, maybe Notre Dame play Purdue, or Notre Dame plays IU, something like that. That'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Been another great show. We appreciate the great Andy Katz joining us from at March Madness 365 podcast and BTN Fox as well. And, of course, a good friend Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Make sure you give him a follow as well. We've got lots more coming up tomorrow. Verdell Jones will be with us. Alec Lasley will talk some basketball. So we got plenty more to get to as we head towards the weekend. The NBA Finals tonight. Get out and have fun. Make sure you wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. And until tomorrow, Dustin, thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate you.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Always fun.
Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.